What up, God's people? Blessings to you all, and we are the
Truthseekers,
where we discuss the absolute truth that is the Word of God. I'm Will, and we're going to introduce tonight's panel.
To
Tom Rossi,
Diane McNeil.
Oh, Eugene Rossi.
And Scott Olson.
And we're off to a little bit of a rough start. Willow forgot her name, and Eugene forgot that he had to say his. So we're going to try to make the best of tonight. We are going to do a lightning round. Yes, the lightning round has returned. I must say I really did enjoy the blood moons that we did next week. And if you're listening to that last week, and if you're listening to that, then that means the blood moon episode of the Truth Seekers is up and available for you to listen to. I will find it for you, Mom, so you can get it. But this week we're going to do the lightning round, and the first subject we will be talking about, I will give to mi madre. Mom?
The topic for me is evil friends. And I wanted to talk about when you're witnessing, the difference between witnessing to someone that needs Christ, and like hanging with someone that is pulling you away from Christ because you're friends. I have a couple of chapters if somebody want to read them for me because I don't have mine.
Yeah.
Exodus.
Okay, so Exodus 23:2 says, "You shall not fall in with many who do evil, nor shall you bear witness in a lawsuit siding with the many so as to pervert justice."
All right, Scott?
Okay, mine was Proverbs chapter 4, verse 14, which says, "Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not into the way of evil men."
All right, and what was mine?
Yours was Proverbs 24:1.
Proverbs 24:1. "Do not envy the wicked, do not desire their company, for their hearts plot violence, and their lips talk about making trouble."
And Psalms 1:1.
Psalms.
Okay, 1:1 is, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the way of sinners, nor stand in the way of the wicked, or sits in the seat of the scornful."
Amen. And Willow, 1 Corinthians 5:11.
It is actually reported that there is
No, you want 11, honey. That is right.
I found it. Hopefully.
Right here. But now
I am writing to leave the world. Oh wait.
leave you that you must
not
associate
with anyone
who
claims to be a brother or sister but is
sexually
immoral or greedy, an
idolater
or
slanderer,
a
drunkard
or
swindler. Do
not even eat with such people.
Okay, see now that's telling you, even though you are supposed to go into the world and witness to people, you're not supposed to, like my mother used to say, soup with them. You know, because you'll find that you'll be taken away, you'll be pulling in the wrong direction. You know what I mean? You'll start things that once was wicked to you and once was evil. You'll find ways to justify it. Well, it ain't so bad. If I just take one, or if I just do it this time, and you'll start sinking lower and lower.
Yeah, I think it's always been a balance. It's always been something that you need discernment for, because going back to 1 Corinthians 5 for a second, in the verse before that, verse 10, or actually in verse 9, Paul says, I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, but then verse 10 says, not at all, meaning that sexually immoral of this world, or the greedy, or the swindlers, or the idolaters, since then you would need to go out of the world. So I think specifically in 1 Corinthians 5, he's talking about other Christians, or he's talking about people who bear the name of brother, who say, or who say they're a Christian and are, and they know they're living in sin and they're living this way. I think it can be part of a church discipline to, kind of like separate yourself from that person, at least in a way. That's what it's saying. But yeah, I think, we need to be careful because, on one hand, Jesus ate with sinners. He ate with the people that were seen as like the lowest in society, but he didn't sin, and I and definitely we see Paul kind of saying the same thing, like, you can, you need to be around people in the world. We need to reach out to people, show them that we care, and so that they can see Christ in us, but we have to use wisdom at the same time. Like me, for example, like I have, my brother and a few family members who aren't Christians, and, I can be around them certain, I can hang out with them certain times, do things, or be around them at home and talk about stuff and be all right, but, I wouldn't go out to, a bar with them or something, or I wouldn't put myself in a place where I knew there was going to be so much, because you have to avoid putting yourself in a place that's going to, is going to cause more temptation. So yeah, it's definitely, you have to have discernment.
All right, so Willow, let me ask you a question. If there were kids who were being bad in school, in the playground, what would you do?
Not play with them.
Why not?
Because they're bad, not Christians.
Okay, good answer. And you don't want to get in trouble like they're going to get in trouble, right? All right, I like that answer. I wish some of us adults can take on that attitude. So here's the question, though. I have a question. Tom, you're a musician. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that maybe in your younger days as a musician, you might have hung out with or played with people who might not be Christian. Would I be right or would I be wrong?
That'd be right.
Okay. Now, one of the things about that makes me wonder is Jesus often, I wouldn't call it hanging out, but Jesus was often out with sinners and the lowest forms of people in that society. Mm-hmm. So how do we discern, or how did you discern from just making music with certain people and not being a light that we're called to be? Because how can we be a light to people if we avoid them?
Right.
Well, intrinsically, there's nothing wrong with getting together with a bunch of people and playing music. So that much of it is good. But you have to be around them long enough that they can see the difference in the way you live as opposed to how they're living.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a couple of earmarks that I would look for that, maybe it's time to move on, but still pray for them, but
mm-hmm.
move on, is this having any redemptive value for them?
Okay.
Right.
And what fruit's coming out of it? And a big one nowadays is, are they doing anything that would have legal implications for me if I were to continue hanging out with them?
Mm-hmm.
Like if, I walked into a room and one of my musician friends was like, they had a line of blow or something like that, getting ready to snort it, and I'm like, whoa, hey now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the cops come along with that stuff, everyone's going down.
Right.
So,
so Scott, let me ask you a question. You doing the things that you do, you meet and you are around a lot of people who aren't necessarily Christians, correct?
I'd say it's, yeah,
Now, for the people that are listening, what are the things that you do that you associate with people who wouldn't exactly claim that to be Christians?
Well, I'm a musician like Tom is.
Yep.
And I did have an experience some years ago where I was playing with a band that wasn't going to go anywhere, and they were into drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can relate to that. I'm part of a mental health support organization, and I think in the interest of doing good, sometimes some of them might be a little more weaker in Christianity than others, because it's all about inclusiveness. So like if somebody isn't really especially religious, they kind of go on that tangent with them.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I have this alleged friend of mine that is supposedly Christian, but she brought her Buddhist friend over, and wow, it got pretty nasty, because for some reason she could witness about her Buddhism, and my friend could go on about, well, if God is for everyone, why are there all these churches? And she was very relative and trying to please everyone, and said, don't discuss anything that happened in my house. It's like, but the two of them just ganged up on me, and just because I was Christian, I couldn't witness. They shut me right down. And I said, oh, obviously I'm not welcome here, and I left. And I patched it up with her, but I feel like she's not the best influence for me.
Right.
I feel because of the other friend that she associates with at the same time.
Well, it's not. The devil don't want you to have a say. He don't want a Christian to start talking about being saved and the coming of Jesus and you accepting Jesus in your heart, being filled with the Holy Spirit, because these are things that are going to cause you to go to heaven and live a life with him. But the devil, his whole plan is to destroy you and to make sure you die without the Lord, because then you have nowhere to go but down.
Another thing you have to question is, is your light starting to become dimmer trying to reach out to people? We live in such a society where we want instant results. It's almost like that, the old adage of the person who goes to the gym, that's their first day, comes home, starts looking in the mirror and searching for a six-pack. It's kind of the same thing when you deal with people who are non-believers. Right. You think you're going to go and debate with them, and if they don't come around that day, to your belief that day, you get frustrated with them, and you want to just, not deal with them at all. How do you, so how long, Mom, do you think you talking to someone, do you finally say, you know what, time to wipe the dust off my feet?
I think you have to pray. And there's, some people, years before they come to the Lord. And something's going to happen to them or for them that they're going to have to cry out to Jesus, and him alone is the only one who can answer or fill that need or that void. Sometimes it's an accident, sometimes it's a near-death experience. Or sometimes they Jesus actually come to them because or speaks to them, whatever it takes. But I don't think you should ever stop praying for people. But when you see yourself getting weak, or you start being sick or being around that person, you get the wrong spirit in you, it's time to move on. It's time to move on.
All right.
I have if I could, real quick, if somebody could read 2 Corinthians, there's 2 Corinthians 6:14 and which I can't see. This one, is that Chronicles?
Yeah.
So 19:2. This one I know is Corinthians 6:14. Chronicles 19:2 and 1 Corinthians 15:33, and those are the last of my verses.
Yeah, so I'll read the 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Temple of the living God. It's the title of it. It says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what has fellowship with darkness?"
Yeah, so that's what we shouldn't continue to hang around people that are not saved.
Well, no, go ahead. I just want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think we have to make a distinction too, because it's saying unequally yoked, and a lot of people interpreted that to mean, marriage, having a boyfriend or girlfriend that's not a believer, or even business partnerships, that kind of thing. But I think even, if you believe that, that's not the same as just being friends with people, because I think it's pretty clear from that other passage we read in 1 Corinthians 5, Paul's saying, I'm not saying don't associate with people of the world who are living that way, because then you would have to, you couldn't even live in the world,
No,
without.
this is not to be friends, like that's my best friend, and
Well,
he's
yeah,
the biggest sin in the world.
Well, they're not your best friend, but I mean, I think like for example, my brother, for example, he's not a Christian. And a couple years ago, I remember, we had some kind of a debate, and he totally, rejected the Bible, so I was like, all right, and a few years went by, and kept praying for him and everything, and then just a couple weeks ago, in between that, he showed some interest in God. I prayed with him. He asked me to pray for him a few times, and I was like, oh, maybe he might be coming around, and then a couple weeks ago, actually, we were talking about God, and we had a good talk for a while about different things, and then finally it got to the cross about whether or not, Jesus is who he said he was, and he asked me some really hard questions, and I had to, tell him the truth, because I wasn't going to lie to him. I said, well, this is what I believe, and then, and he still didn't believe me, so does that mean I just never hang out with him again and totally,
No, what it means is you don't lose the way you feel.
Right.
You don't start taking on his side in what he believes. You can still love him.
Yeah, so I mean, how can we, say that we love people in the world if we just totally, so I'm saying, there's some times with certain people we might have to do that if it's really going to influence us the wrong way, especially if there's drugs or something involved. But I also think, there's as a Christian, we can have friendships, we can reach out to people and still, have some form of a relationship with them, and in order to be around them, to show them the love of Christ without being, unequally yoked in the sense that Scripture's saying, or without, falling into sin. But again, it takes kind of discernment, to figure out what you're going to do in that.
All right, so quickly before we end on this subject, I just want to say something. I for some reason was thinking about the story of Moses and how Moses had to walk around with those people for 40 years?
Yeah.
40 years. And the damage it did to him. All the unbelief, all the bickering, all the complaining, all the whining. Moses ended up walking with them and leading them, but he ended up losing his way as well a couple of times.
Yeah.
When he struck the rock out of frustration. So he started becoming complaining and whining and stuff like that. And I think that happens to a lot of us Christians sometimes when we try to help, this person, I got to show them that I can be a Christian and still be a friend despite of their sin. And then, you start getting frustrated because either they're not turning or they're not converting as fast as you want them to,
right,
or you're starting to think how they think because you become friends with them. And I think that's the thing that you have to be very, very conscious about and know and say to yourself, okay, I'm starting to lean a little bit this way. Let me back off.
And you either do that, or what usually happens, like Moses did, you become angry.
Yeah.
And that's what caused him not to go to the promised land. because of his anger.
Yep, so
he lost his temper that one
right. So
time.
don't lose your promise. The promised land is promised to you. When you're out there trying to be a light to the world, don't become too much like it and then end up losing your promise.